Welcome to the February Hawthorne Huddle. Before we get started, I just want to take a minute and realize we lost a young man yesterday, another one's in the hospital, and we also lost another man downtown. So, this violence is just like really getting bad, and it's already been 6 homicides or murders in St. Paul. So hopefully this will be a better year, but I just had to throw that out there because I'm thinking of those families this morning. And so without further ado, I am going to turn it over to my good friend, Mr. Al, so he can get the show started here for us this morning. How you doing again, Al?
Absolutely wonderful. Thank you, Diana. Good morning to you and good morning to everybody. Thank you all for being here. This is the regular monthly meeting of the Hawthorne Huddle. Before I begin, I want to just say how great it is that we're able to assemble as we do every month to consider the affairs of our community, our neighborhood, the city, and to have this exchange. And as always, we're going to begin with the presentations by our colleague from the City of Minneapolis Health Department, Luisa Pessoa Brandal, followed by a presentation by our colleague who's with the 4th Precinct, Bill Magnuson, with the Police and Crime Report. I want to say that I put into the chat a copy of the upcoming edition of Insight News. So when it comes out Monday with the electronic edition, you get an early peek at it. So look at that and download it. The cover is artwork by St. Paul artist Donald Walker. Speaks to the moment of this escalation of gun violence in our community. And it also has on page 3, our second front, a story about the House of Representatives in Minnesota considering plans to prevent crime in Minnesota cities. A lot of good information, stories on what we're doing around COVID-19 as well. Last thing I want to do is introduce a intern with Insight News, and she's joining to monitor the program. She'll be working with us to identify how we can support neighborhood organizations like Hawthorne, Jordan, and others. And so Naomi Thompson is here. Naomi, good morning and welcome. With that, you'll be hearing from her. She'll be calling you to get you on board to working with us. With that, let me begin by asking our health department colleague to begin with her report. Luisa Pessoa Brandal. Good morning, Luisa.
Good morning, everyone. Happy to be here. As you have heard with COVID, we have been in this awash in cases, unfortunately, with Omicron. When I was here in early January, we're just just starting to see that wave of cases, and it turned out to be more like a tsunami of cases, I think, for the month of January. I was just looking at the final, not quite the final numbers, but we are at just in Minneapolis alone, over 20,000 cases diagnosed of COVID. And we know that is an undercount because it does not count all of the cases diagnosed with over-the-counter tests. And I know from our work with Minneapolis Public Schools that they were passing those out to students, and that many of the students were using those and testing positive, unfortunately. So we've had, we were during the second week in January seeing more than 1,100 cases per day. So that's 1,100 people with lab confirmed results per day. So again, unfortunately, we know an undercount. On the good news, sort of the silver lining, is that we seem to be past the worst of it. We are starting to see the numbers come down, not just in terms of numbers of cases, but also the percent of positive test results. So that indicates that it's likely a true decrease in cases and not that we don't have enough testing for people to get tested if they need to. While with Omicron, we have seen that just being fully vaccinated is not as effective as if you have the booster. So we're seeing cases go up both among those that are unvaccinated as well as those that had received the 2 doses or 1 dose of the for a primary series, we still are seeing a large that by large, the vaccine is still very protective against severe disease and death. So just to give you an idea, the hospitalization rate is in Minnesota was 8 times greater for those that were unvaccinated compared to those that are vaccinated. And unfortunately, we don't have that information by those that have the booster, which we know for those that have the booster, it's even more effective. But so 8 times greater in the death rate was 18 times greater among those that did not have the vaccine compared to those that are vaccinated. So, yes, Omicron sort of came in, and even for those that are vaccinated was, that was not protection of infection, although still those unvaccinated 1.5 times more likely to get infected, but we are still seeing that protection from disease. January was the largest number of cases we've seen. I mean, 20,000 cases. The next largest was 12,000 this past December. And to put it in context, in 2020 in November, when the governor shut the schools down and we shut everything down again, we saw 9,600 cases. So not, less than half what we've seen in January. We are continuing to see increase in people getting vaccinated, which is fantastic. And we had some good news this week. Moderna received full approval from the FDA for their 18 and older vaccine, and Pfizer has submitted data and a request for emergency approval for their under 5 vaccination. We did see the numbers in December and January, the numbers in our younger residents go up significantly. So those under 5 and even those in schools. And I know that you have some guests from Minneapolis Public Schools today. In our work with them in January, it was, we were having a hard time keeping up with things. And I really admire the work that they were trying to do to keep schools open, to keep kids safe, and hopefully, we can, after this, the 2 week of distance learning, we can come back and have, with the numbers going down, have things under control. There wasn't a specific pattern. Like I said, lots of cases, increases in our younger age group, but all over the city. So there wasn't a particular neighborhood that was hit more. Hawthorne is not amongst the highest, having the highest numbers, and it didn't happen, but it was throughout the city in terms, although rates continue to be highest for our BIPOC communities. And so that's what I have. I'm just happy to answer any questions, and happy to be here and be able to provide any information. We do have about 81% of Minneapolis residents 5 and older have received at least 1 dose of the vaccine. So we need to continue to increase that number. In terms of fully vaccinated, we're still, or 2 doses of vaccine, we're still lower, but we're hoping that we can continue to increase that. And the city is has a vaccine clinic that will be happening, I believe, this Saturday at the Davis Center. And we are going to look at doing another one later this month. So we're still out there trying to get people vaccinated. And, so if people that are looking for a place, so they just, we'd like them to sign up first, but if they can't, they can also just walk in. I can get the information on the vaccine clinic and put it in the chat as well.
Great, Lisa, thank you. Any update on our neighborhoods here in North Minneapolis, Hawthorne, Jordan,
Yeah, as I said, the numbers increased significantly throughout the city. So there wasn't one particular neighborhood that was singled out. When I look at wards 4 and 5, which I believe are those in the, sort of in the north, the percent of cases there continues to stay fairly stable. And so that means to me that there wasn't a significant increase in any of those neighborhoods. Hawthorne has about 1,300 cases for the entirety of the time. That is not, it's not a small number of cases, but it is not amongst necessarily the highest in terms of neighborhoods. So I think that, you're seeing, it was just, like I said, it was a tsunami. It sort of came over the city, and there was not a neighborhood that was necessarily spared from seeing large numbers of cases. When we look at case rates, we still see significant disparities, but in terms of the numbers that we saw just these past 2 months, we couldn't single out, there wasn't a pattern to it. So it was just throughout the city. It was really overwhelming, and sometimes overwhelming for us that have been doing this for 2 years. It was numbers like we hadn't seen before. Even thinking back to last November 2020, December 2020, when the numbers went up and it were high. That paled in comparison to what we saw this time.
Any other questions? Let's see. Okay, well, listen, thank you so much. Thank you, Lisa. Keep up the good work, and we appreciate your presenting here every month. And we turn now to Bill Magnuson. Bill, you always give us an update on crime statistics and things that we are all concerned about, the public safety of our neighborhood. Bill, I'm turning the mic over to you.
Morning, sir. Thank you. Morning, everyone. So for the month of January for the Hawthorne neighborhood for Part 1 crimes, and I'll remind everybody that a Part 1 crime is anytime there's a victim involved in a crime. That's what we call a Part 1 crime, and those are the ones that we track the most because they're usually the most serious. So there were 0 homicides, 3 rapes, 5 robberies, 8 aggravated assaults, 1 burglary, 7 thefts, 11 auto thefts, 0 arsons for a total of 35. And I'm positive that's down from January. I think the number in December, of last year was around 44, 43 for Part 1 crimes. So it was down a little bit for the violent crimes. And there were the biggest uptick that we saw was in auto thefts. And I think that's contributed. Both things I think contribute to the decrease in some of the violent crimes, and the increase in auto thefts was the cold. January is probably colder than December, so people weren't out and about. And then auto thefts are going to be, most of those are going to be open ignition thefts. And that's when people go out, warm up their cars because they want to get in a warm car, leave it running. Sometimes the keys are in it, or also use a key fob, but they could still steal the car. So that's what we're seeing with that increase in auto thefts. Does anybody have any questions?
Any comments on the incidents downtown, Bill?
As of yesterday, I can't really comment on anything like that because that's an ongoing investigation. I know that anytime that happens, we lose a community member, it's going to be tragic no matter what the circumstances are. So, but I really can't comment. I really don't know much either, to be honest with you. That's an ongoing investigation with the BCA is kind of taking that over. I do know that I don't know if you're aware, but incident that happened in Richfield, the 2 individuals that were taken into custody were Minneapolis residents. Once again, it's always tragic when someone loses their life, but it's also equally as tragic when our youth resort to guns to solve their issues and problems. And so that doesn't, we've lost, an individual lost his life, but then those 2 individuals that committed that crime have also kind of screwed up their lives too. And that's unfortunate in my opinion as well. So it's just something that we got to help get our work as a community to help get on top of and help our kids make better decisions and keep them safer. So.
Any questions or comments? Well, Bill, as always, thank you so much for the updates, and we appreciate the work that you and your colleagues, officers, are doing with us in community. And any tips for people? How do we, Bill, just be both more aware and supportive of each other, so that safety is sort of top of mind for all of us all the time?
It's just working together, be aware of your surroundings, and don't be afraid to speak up and say something. Call 911. Go ahead and report issues that you feel that are unsafe or whatever like that. Just make somebody aware of it so then it can get looked in later like that. Don't hesitate to call the 4th precinct. I mean, I'm always open to, my door's always open, my phone's always open. You can always call me. Inspector Adams feels the same way. Inspector Adams is a big believer in the community and partnering up with the community on partnerships. We work well with the Mother's Love, and we push for peace in those entities too as well. So it's just basically be cognizant of your surroundings, being aware of your fellow neighbors and your man and women and your community, and just being out there, being present, and looking at and saying something and reporting stuff.
Great. Again, any other comments or questions? Well, Bill, thank you for that. We'll move on the agenda. Next, our regular report from Clarence Jones with the Human organization. Clarence, good to see you, my friend.
Thank you. It's good to be seen and not viewed. My report today will be specifically related to the partnership agreement between the City of Minneapolis and the Hawthorne Neighborhood Council. The grant period was from September 2021 through December 2022. And Hawthorne partnered with Human as well as with several other neighborhoods to enhance the awareness of substance abuse and health in these communities. And there were specific outcomes that were expected from us. And I want to share now what we have done in this period of time. First of all, we have continued our survey collection with the My Strength, My Health from the University of Minnesota. Working with the Lynn Hill neighborhoods, we collected more than 140 surveys from their community members. A second interaction that we had with Lynn Hill, we co-sponsored a show with Princess Titus to talk about the issue of healthy eating. There were 2 Spanish Narcan trainings where there were more than 45 people in attendance. We also co-sponsored a Somalian Health Summit with the University of Minnesota School of Public Health and the Public Health Disparities Research Group at the University of Minnesota. And we have been asked to utilize the survey in several neighborhoods. There was a basketball tournament that we co-sponsored called Shoot Hoops, Not Guns, where more than 400 people were in attendance. And media coverage of that event was also recorded. A second event will be held in April with this Shoot Hoops Not Guns, where we will be creating a health village, and we're expecting more than 1,000 people to attend this event. Tommy McBrayer of Can Do, who is the creator of this, created a Chop It Up show where a panel of community members, including Sam Simmons and Pearl Evans and others, presented the impact of substance abuse on our community. And because of the work that Tommy is doing around Shoot Hoops, Not Guns, he's been invited to a small regional conference where he could talk about this issue and learn some things and come back to our community and share information about men's health, substance abuse, parenting, and gun violence. The brochure that we were working on around substance abuse and pregnancy has been completed, and several organizations have asked us to help them to distribute that statewide. And so we will, the last point is that we will be working on getting some COVID-19, some N95 masks and COVID testing to our community members in the Hawthorne neighborhood. And so that's my report.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? Okay. Then the next part of our program is always fun and exciting. We honor community members for their work. And Diana, I'm gonna have you unmute and you and I can do this together. The people that we're honoring are friends of ours, people that we've known for, it seems, a lifetime and more, but people that we admire and respect and love for being who they are, doing what they do in the spirit of community. And I'm talking about two families, one represented by Titilayo Bidiaco. Her in particular, but her whole family. When I speak to her, I think about all of the Matthew Little family and clan. A story on Titilayo is that her sister Azania used to work for Insight as a reporter, and Azania went to Africa and came back. And the first time I saw her when she came back, came to the office downtown Minneapolis and said to me, her first words were, "Hello, African." And I was taken aback by that. And this was back in the time when being African and being Black were fighting words. Our culture was one that discouraged Black people from identifying with the notion of being Black. If you call somebody Black, you're ready to fight. And if you call somebody African, you're ready to fight. So she says, "Hello, African." And I said, "What did you call me?" Kind of angry like that. And so she just looked at me for a second and said, "Hello, African." And so I thought about it for a second, and it felt so good. It felt good. It kind of woke up something in my mind, my spirit, in my consciousness. And I always remember that as a moment of epiphany and of a rebirth almost, where it connected to me, something connected me to who I was, to my ancestry, and to my culture, and to my identity in a way that's positive. So I thank them for that. So Titilayo is an educator. And Diana, you can go from there and just talk about Titilayo and her work in community.
Well, first of all, this is my favorite part. And out of respect for our honorees, if you could please turn your cameras on so we can see your lovely faces. I mean, we got like 30 people on this call. And out of respect for them, as Black History Month, I mean, I think we owe it to, our people, our honorees, when we honor them, if we can all look at one another. I really appreciate that. But my sister TT's been down the street from me in Hawthorne for so many years. I just tell you, it's so funny. Her daddy was a mentor of mine when I first came here, and her sister and I are friends and have worked on things. And I just can't tell you enough about the work that she's doing with our youth. And it's incredible work because it's not different work, but it's real work. And our kids are learning all kind of different cultures in her program. She stems to St. Paul. She reaches out all over and she just touches you. So Miss Ann, before we have Miss TT talk, can you please let everyone see this beautiful award that we have given to them on behalf of Hawthorne Huddle? This one is for Miss TT personally. And then we've also given one to the organization where it has a picture. You have that one, Ann? With the kids on it. And we thought it was fitting because, like I said, when you have someone like this who goes all out and do what they do, they deserve to be rewarded. So I just want to personally thank you for all the work that you do. Did you unmute, ma'am? Can you say a few words? And anybody else want to say a few words about Miss TT's work real quick?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. I'm Linda Benford, and I work for We Win Institute. I am the program, after school program supervisor. And that's me down in there in that red sweater with the kids.
Uh-huh.
That's me.
Okay.
I want to thank you for, it was a big surprise for me about this award. I didn't even know about this, but I do appreciate it and thank you very much. Okay.
You're so welcome. You never know who's watching what you're doing.
Yes, yes. Okay. TT.
I'm here.
Oh, okay.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you very much. We're very honored and to be recognized. And I know many of you that are on here as we've done work together. It's all about love for community, and I just want to give a shout out. I believe it's 2 other people that are on here that work with We Win Institute besides Linda Benford. I think Ashante Braxton is on here. Amelia Hansa is on here. There's probably a few others. I've worked with Clarence. Of course, I've worked with Al for many, many years. As a matter of fact, in terms of Al McFarlane, when I first started teaching back in the 90s, late 80s, 90s, Al has always been, and Insight News has always been a place where, which has given voice to our children. So we've been able to give our children voice and help in terms of their leadership by putting their writings out, putting their pictures, and it really makes a difference because it makes them feel very special, and it really helps in terms of their leadership. I have some for Black History Month, Al. And we just, it's all about how do we help in terms of creating successes in terms of our children and our people. And so it's about giving them a love and understanding of their history and culture, and, being of service. When we help in our examples in terms of being of service, that's what it's about. And so all of the people that are working with We Win are example of the best of us as a people and as a community. And I'll give a shout out to Brother Vusi and Black Storyteller Alliance when they come up. But thank you very much for the recognition. And We Win is in our 25th year. So thank you very much. We're honored and we appreciate you.
You're welcome, my sister. Did anybody else have any words that they wanted to say real quick to this wonderful lady here? Okay, Al, we can move on with the next one.
Zulu and Masano Zulu are legends, legendary leaders, legendary and phenomenal human beings. The Black Storytellers Alliance is one of the many expressions of their commitment to upholding and nurturing the legacy of our culture and of our community. And both Vusi and Nthondo are genuinely, and I think formally acknowledged as king and queen in our community, chiefs in our community, in the best Pan-African traditions. They have been key in preserving the humor, the clarity, the power of the culture, but also as organizers, as administrators and entrepreneurs, and as a leading family. So it's a great honor to be part of recognizing them and their work. I have to tell you that one of the best stories I ever heard that I love to hear again and again is the one that Nthondo Zulu does as an instruction that's inspirational. And that is the story that talks about the eagle that thought he was a chicken until he was able to reconnect with who he really was. It's a story that lifts you up, gives you wings. And I think it's one of many stories that they both have captured and created in the culture that keep us focused on becoming our true selves, our very, very best selves. So with that, personal thanks to Vusi Zulu and Chief Vusi Zulu and Queen Nthondo Zulu And Diana, you might want to add, we all go back a long time. What are your comments and thoughts?
I mean, Al, when I first came here over 30 years ago, this was one of the families I met as well. And I'll never forget, me and Mama, as I call her, were in a group, and I was the youngest one in the group. But it was the wisdom that I got from those ladies at this group. And Bootsy, what can I say? Like I said, we go way back, KMOJ days. So I just don't know. This, you know, when you have family like this and you congratulate them, what do you say? I mean, I don't know. I don't know. They're wonderful. I love their whole family. And with that being said, we'll let them talk, Al.
Okay, Lucy and Nathando, the microphone is yours.
Well, thank you so very much. You know, as you can see, we have one of our grandchildren here, baby Bahani, and she is anxious, of course. We have two other great grands that are here with us. So we are very honored to be with you. Very, very pleased and happy because, like you say, we go a long way back. I mean, a long way back. And this is will be our 32nd year in having our festival.
Right.
Now I'm doing all the talking because I'm the festival director, but again, the boss is Lozano Zulu.
Right.
She is the president of Black Storytellers Alliance. And as Al says, that wonderful story, her trademark story is called The Eagle, which is amongst many. So we are just so pleased to be with Sister TT and
Yes.
we win at the same time.
Absolutely.
Because we work together quite well. So one of the things that the two of you have mentioned, Al and Diana, is how well community works when community is a family working together. That's extremely important, extremely so. And as Al alluded to, the fact of being called an African and being Black. So every time TT sees me or any other Black man, what's up, Black man? Which is a righteous greeting. No time, though. I'll stop.
And I want to say thank you as well. I really appreciate the fact that we recognize for the work that we do. We love what we do. We love serving community, and we know that it is service to the community that makes the difference for community. You know, I was thinking about the words you might write me down in history with your whatever. I can't even remember the words now, but they're you write me down ugly. But what I'm hearing and seeing now is that they may not even want to write us down. They want to erase us. And so it is definitely important that we carry the story, our stories, share them with community and our children, especially because, you know, we're thinking, everything is just so alive for us. But for our children, this generation, and the other generations in between, a lot of them have no real idea of what the fight was about, how it took place, what was even happening. And so it is so important for us to share those things. And so that's why we have the festival, just, to include as much information as possible, but to also show our joy and our faith. That is what has helped us to move where we are, continue to move, even in the face of things that, in the face of trouble and violence and those things that would keep us down.
Now, I love the fact that she gave me a beautiful segue, because our stories must tell not just our pathos, but our ethos. It is our resilience of African people in this country that has made the country great and continues to do so. So while white supremacy is on the rise again, and for those who don't believe it, just look around, take a listen. watch the news, look at Insight, and watch this baby girl trying to get anxious in here. The fact is that white supremacy, while it is on the rise, we have to recognize it is not stronger than we as a people are. We as a people will continue to move on. Or as Frederick Douglass says, you have to deal with the struggle. You may not get all that that you pay for, but you must pay for all that you get. And that's one of the things that we understand. And so therefore, we thank you. We thank the board of Hawthorne. We thank you, Brother Al, all of those of you who had something to do with giving us this award. We appreciate it.
And I want to just say also that I really do miss the morning, the Tuesday morning KMOJ Al McFarlane breakfast.
Phil's Kitchen, yeah.
Well,
we'll bring that back. I'm doing daily shows on Zoom and on StreamYard at 1 o'clock every day. So I invite people to show up. We talk about entrepreneurship, about health and wellness, about education, culture, and community. So but there's nothing like being together. And as we get through and beyond COVID-19, we'll find ways to enrich each other's lives again by being present in each other's lives. Lucy, happy birthday. You had a birthday recently?
Well, thank you very much, brother. Yes, sir.
So happy birthday to you. Any other comments from anybody else who wanting to say a comment or reflection or about the Zulu family and the Zulu mission? Let me ask you quickly, Lucy, how and when did you change your name to Zulu? What was the thought process and the impact of that decision?
That was back in 1969, and which I was working then with a sister who was a refugee running away from South Africa. Her name was Lindiwe Mabuza. Her name is still Lindiwe Mabuza. And she was here. And we worked together along with Mahmoud El Kati to create a name-changing ceremony called Ukavuka Kwesizwe. And we said it's a resurrection of that nation. So she named me because I definitely would not have named myself. That is for sure, because the name Vusumusi, while it's very common in South Africa, it is a name which means he who resurrects the nation, that carries on the family name, in other words. So that's very important. And Zulu is a word which means the ultimate, the sky, the limit. That was a little bit grandiose to me, but I love it. So that was what occurred. And I don't know if you remember, Brother Al, but we did have that ceremony in the way in which we had folks dressed in kind of white robes and had on blonde wigs on their faces and had white masks on the back of their head. Because we said that as long as you don't know who you are, you're going through life backwards. And so that was one of the things that we dealt with. So thank you for asking. And then when I became installed as a chief, as paramount chief, I just want to clarify something, because when Brother Al brought that out saying that I am chief, yes, so is he. He was installed as a chief. What people may not understand is being a chief means being a servant. It does not mean that you are just the ruler. Yes, you are supposed to govern wisely, but the people can destool you if you are not doing it right. And in the West African Ghanaian tradition of the Ghana people, all they have to do is, if the elder council comes together and say, you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing there, Junior, they pick you up, they bounce your behind on the ground 3 times, and that's it. No more chief, because you haven't been serving the people. Just want to throw that one in there too. Thanks for the opportunity.
Great instruction. So, to me, Lucy and Nathaniel, it's about us rediscovering the protocols of community and of culture. The protocols are like catechisms, proverbs that enable us instinctively to do the right thing and doing the right thing is being our true selves, being our best selves, and also guides how we interact with each other and helps us all to, in every word and every presence, lift and connect with the best that we can bring to community and to our time. So listen, thank you so very much. And again, congratulations to you, Nathaniel. Congratulations, Tita Layo Bediako, for your being honored today and for your service to our community. Thank you. Let me move on to the main part of the program today. And we're going to give a status report of what's happening with the Minneapolis public schools during COVID. And so we're glad to have Steve White here. Steve White is the assistant principal of North Community High School. Good morning, Steve, and thank you for being here. Also on this, we have Kelly Wright, the principal of Nellie Stone Johnson Community School. And we have Yusuf Abdullah, principal of Henry High School. Three people who have a tremendous responsibility and tremendous insight into how our communities and how our children, how our families work and prosper, even in the difficulty created by both the COVID-19 pandemic, but also the social and cultural unrest, the reckoning that we're experiencing. So I'm pleased to invite the three of you. And let me just start with Kelly Wright, first of all. Kelly Wright, thank you for being here. And then we'll go to Steve and Yusuf, if that order is okay. You're welcome to change it if you wish. But Kelly, thank you so much for your leadership, your service to our community. The microphone is yours.
Thank you, Mr. McFarlane. And thank you for having me here today to speak about the schools and about the community. I welcome the opportunity and to be in such greatness as Ms. Zulu. I've heard her so many times. She is amazing. So glad to be in the company. Our schools facing great challenges right now. This is probably I'm going on my 27th year in Minneapolis School District. I don't think, who would have thought we'd ever be facing times where we're leading in pandemics and, unrest, with all the unrest that we've had going on with George Floyd and, the pandemics and, police brutality and that kind of thing. So our communities are, in a lot of turmoil right now. But with that being said, our families are very resilient. Our students are resilient and brilliant, and yet they still come to us bright-eyed and ready to learn. So that's our reward in doing this work. Right now, our main challenge is COVID-19, and we have a lot of absenteeism and quarantining because of that. What we're facing now is just getting our students to school, getting them to school safely, and consistently. That's been our challenge here at Nellie Stone Johnson. If we get them here, we can teach them, but just getting them here has been a challenge. I was just speaking to my supervisor, like one of my teachers had 10 kids on quarantine, which is really hard to try to teach a class when you have 10 kids on quarantine. So that's been one of our main challenges, just trying to get our students vaccinated so that they don't have to quarantine so much. And we don't have, our attendance has been like a revolving door right now. So that's been one of our main challenges. But we're working through it. We're making adjustments, and we're seeing our students come in and grow, and we're just we're doing the work. So like I told my staff, our theme has been, like I've pulled a thing from President Obama. We have the audacity to hope, and we're pulling that theme. We're keeping the charge going, and we're just working with our students, and we're making the gains, and we're working a lot with SEL. a lot with social emotional learning and a lot with mental health to make sure when we get them here that we're ready for them and ready to do the work. So that's mainly what we're working on here. Yeah.
Steve White, jump in and talk about what's happening in your institution. Your assistant principal at North Community High.
Morning, everybody. Thank you for inviting me to this space, and thank you for asking about how the schools are going. Our what we're doing here, similar to what Principal Wright had just talked about. A lot of our challenges right now are revolving around or are centered around the technical aspects of managing COVID. The staff outages when somebody is out, then who is teaching? Then there's a labor shortage, so then who's subbing? Do we even get a sub? Okay, then we don't have a sub, so now we have role switching around, and so it's a really ongoing daily challenge of being dynamic and in the moment and making. If this was football, we're calling audibles every single day, and even during the day. We have, you probably just saw me look that direction. Someone's coming in to get a COVID test all the time to, every little cold or sniffle. Nobody wants to infect anybody. So it's an immediate heightened sense of, oh my gosh, do I have COVID? What are the consequences? Who was I just near? And so there's a lot of just stress that just pops on everyone at every moment. We're asking the kids to wear masks all the time. Kids are kids, they don't like it. So they struggle with that. They forget, they do a little of this. They are wearing their mask. No, you got to wear it this way. So the ongoing challenges of that, we're also seeing little hidden things that I never actually saw coming. How much of your face or being able to read another person or see and sense and receive and give information to another person comes from the lower half of a face, which is gone right now for all of us. So we're struggling with even like reading and reading each other right and responding to each other right. We're getting good at it, but we're not great at it. And it's an ongoing challenge. The contact tracing, as soon as somebody gets COVID, then it's who are they close to, who is this, who is that, and it's all these questions, and so it is a lot. It is something that none of us a few years ago could have imagined we'd be dealing with. It's a significant chunk of the day, and while attending to that, we're also still supposed to be working for the learning at high levels. And serving the children and serving their 30-year-old selves. They're 16 years old making choices that's impacting who they're gonna, the access they'll get when they're 30. And so we're trying to also at the same time, in the ultimate walk and chew gum moment, be mindful of their future and how to guide them through their choices right now. So to the community, I would any reinforcement and pressure you can say on that every single student, every single one of us on being safe and following these very inconvenient protocols is saving lives and is saving learning. Because then when a kid gets to stay here, we're far more effective. When the kid has to go home and do 2 weeks on quarantine, we know their learning is terrible. And then we got to bring that back and try to catch them up so that after a short period of time, you can't even tell they were on quarantine. But that's hard and that's extra. And this is already hard. And to add more hard is super challenging. And to put this on kids is if this was avoidable and we were doing this to the kids, it would be unconscionable. But this is not avoidable. So we have to just endure this one. Our kids are resilient and they are hearing us on this, that it is safety centered, that it is their learning centered, that it is that there's love at the heart of this, even as we're being really irritating parents in their face all the time about socially distant in their face with masks on in their face about keeping your mask on and stuff like that. So yeah, so it's a challenge. It's a challenge everywhere. It's a challenge at the school. Thank you.
Thank you, the Principal Yusuf Abdullah. Good morning, and thank you so much for being here. Thank you for your leadership up at Henry High School. Please share your thoughts, impressions.
Thank you, brother. And thank you for having me. Like Kelly Wright said, Principal Kelly Wright, we are amongst greatness. I've heard a lot of stories about storytelling over the years, and I'm just blessed to be a part of this community this morning. Let me put some, I'm going to try not to be redundant because everything that my colleagues said, I mean, I can repeat, but let me just put some things in perspective. You know, I saw a visual just the other day that spoke to the last normal school year for students. So what that means normal, you know, you can define however you want. But for 12th grade students, the last normal day was 9th grade. 11th grade students, the last normal day was 8th grade. For those students who was in 10th grade, the last normal day was in 7th grade. If you was in 9th grade, the last normal day was in 6th grade. So that's what we're up against. I'm going to shift gears a little bit. Personally, I have a senior, and I can rewind. I had graduated when the pandemic first hit, a senior, my son, graduate of 2020 that had his high school career cut in half, and changed things for him and his peers. I have a 12th grader right now, which means that his last normal day was in 9th grade, which I can see the impacts of that every day. And I have a 7th grader who started middle school in the midst of a pandemic. Her last normal day was in 4th grade. So as we're trying to lead our buildings and do what's best for students, us adults are also trying to manage our own impacts, personal impacts, our own families, how it's impacting us as individuals. And then we're trying to manage our staff's personal lives. And then we also are taking on a whole school community. And so we do it with hope. I know Kelly mentioned that we do it with hope. We're in the weeds. We're taking it one day at a time while we're still trying to plan for the unforeseeable future or unpredictable future. You know, our theme at Henry High School is all about joy and identity. You know, our ancestors, through the midst of all the doom and gloom, found joy, and we can too. And so part of my job is to get out there and discover it and raise it to the forefront, help folks see that this is not all doom and gloom. We have the ability to move things forward at a high level. We partner with YCB Youth Coordinating Board. I know Diana Hawkins is on here, and her son is right there in the fight with us, along with his team, and CEO led by Jamil Jackson come in, and they're in the hallways, they're building relationships, they're connecting. And so we're just trying to find ways to do what's best for students while focusing on what matters. At the high school level, it's all about trying to get students to have a good experience so that they're prepared for life after K-12 education. And so with all that's going on, all the distractions, it's really hard to figure out what matters. But right now, their social, emotional well-being is at the forefront, while we're really trying to make sure that academics doesn't get dropped. But as a Black community who always have been in the midst of a pandemic, this is not new to us in terms of our struggle, but how do we make sure that as a collective, our students, our staff, our community is getting what it deserves for the well-being. And I know that if we are able to really learn about what really matters, despite what standards is placed upon us, our students will be life ready.
Great information. Thank you, all three. I have some questions before I bring those. Is there anybody else has a question or comment about the report? Diana, go ahead.
I just want to say I admire all three of y'all because, Steve, you have the most of my grandkids in your school. And Kelly, you have some, and Yusef, like you said, my son is right there in the middle of this fight. And as a parent, I hear these stories from my grandkids on a daily basis. and they're all experiencing the same exact thing. So this is real, y'all. So I really appreciate y'all being here today, letting us know from three different schools, you know, how and what is needed in this community right now.
Thank you, Diana. Anybody else with a comment, reflection, a thought, or question? So let me play the journalist then and just throw out some things that I think are on people's minds, whether they say it or not. I was happy to note and to hear you, Steve White, describe this consciousness that not only are you speaking to a child, but you're actually speaking to that child as a 30-year-old. That's huge. That's huge, because that in itself, from my point of view, is a reflection or indication of the hope, you know, and of the positivity that can and should lie ahead for each individual child. So I really heard that, and I want to thank you for that. I think it makes all the difference in the world when you lead with an expectation that that child is going to experience success and capability in community. But I wanted to ask all three of you to take a second to talk about what the kids are saying about the pandemic, even though they might be tired of it like everybody else. But how are they actually navigating in their personal and school lives and family lives as you observe? What are you learning and hearing from them? And that's question number one. I have two more after that. Start with you, Kelly, right, Principal Wright. What's your thought?
Mostly, since our kids are a little younger, they don't say anything specifically about the pandemic. They mostly, it's verbalized through tired of wearing the masks. They're tired of quarantining. You know, why do we have to go home? Why do we have to be at home? It's things like that, you know, when they're questioning the pandemic. And some of our students are on their second and third quarantine, which is just heartbreaking. You know, and they want to know, why do I have to go home again? I want to be at school. So, you know, they're verbalizing it in those kind of ways of, you know, being sent home because they're sick, you know, or because they have a couple of the symptoms, you know, and they want to be at school. So that's the heartbreaking part about a lot of it for our students, is that they're younger, they want to be at school, they don't want to be sent home, you know, and they're just verbalizing, why do I have to be at home? You know, I want to come to school. So they really want to be at school. They don't want to be sent home. They don't want to be at home, you know. They want to be where, you know, they want to be here. They want to be with us. They want to be learning. So that's really hard because every time they're sent home, it's 10 days, you know.
What are the numbers? What's the universe? What's the population of your building, your school? And at a given time, at the worst time, how many kids might be out as individuals? And how does it impact you when the entire school or the system requires distance learning for some period of time?
It has impacted us greatly. At some point, I've had 4, 5, 6 kids in a classroom. My attendance has been really bad, down to about 50, 60%. I tell you what happened though, when we went to online learning for those 2 weeks, when we came back Monday, I had almost all my kids here. You know, like it just gave us time to settle and let everyone kind of get a quarantine in, you know. Students were online, students came back. I was like, oh, I haven't seen this child in forever, you know, like, so it really helped to settle everything down. Classrooms were almost full. So I was so happy on Monday. Just the kids were happy to come back. Teachers were happy. You know, we saw students we hadn't seen in a long time, which was really exciting. It had a large impact on our winter scores, on testing. We weren't even able to test a lot of our students in the winter because they weren't here. So our attendance was really bad, you know, during these winter months, during the winter session. So I'm looking for and it really stopped a lot of momentum because our scores were starting to rebound, and then attendance just just stopped it dead in its track. So, yeah.
Yusuf Abdullah, same question.
Yeah, it's what are our students saying? One, it's different for one person to the next, but I would say there's a group of students who just don't want to be at home. They want to be in school. They want the school experience. They're showing up to basketball games. They're signing up for after school activities. They're part of student council, and just they want to have a voice. And they just want, some type of, normalcy in terms of just socialization. They're engaging in the classroom, depending on the topic. But then we also, Mr. McFarlane, we got another group that don't mind being at home because they learn a new way of doing school. And with the technology can still stay ahead and get things done. And so there's some conflicting messages going on here that I can do this at home and still stay on top of things, maybe still work more hours than I typically have done, make some money, help my family out. But they're not getting that same type of socialization, but they are seeing another way and another means to getting through high school. So we just got a mixed bag, and that we have to kind of continue to process. I do think that the pandemic has opened pathways to other opportunities, flexibility with schedule. I think, but the greater system put a lot of emphasis on attendance and seat time that kind of conflicts with what we call equity or the possibilities.
Principal Steve White, your comments, your thoughts?
I'm sorry, I had to break away just for a second to do announcements. Our routines and rituals that we have here are critical and set the tone for the day. And so Ms. Friesleven is out with a cold today. And so I'm acting principal today. And so I had to do those announcements quick. Sorry for the disruption. So what the question again, one more time?
What are you hearing from the students as they navigate the COVID-19? What are you learning? Anything surprising you about the impact of this environment? And I talk specifically about COVID-19, but I'm going to ask you, and I'll come back around to discuss that, but also discuss things like what we're all looking at in the news today, the shooting in Bloomington. What happens? How does that affect your students when another child is victimized by gun violence in or around a school anywhere in Twin Cities?
So with respect to COVID, first, the kids are acutely aware that this is unfair. They're acutely aware that the adults that are teaching them right now never experienced this in high school. And also because of just the nature of all of it, with all of the technology changes, everybody's fully aware that we're figuring this out as we go, which is also unfair. Far from being expert, everybody at best has been a Zoom teacher or a Google Classroom teacher for a whole 1 year. That is not expert yet. That's novice at best and functional, but not excellent. And so that weighs on our teachers who hold themselves to high standards, as that they're aware that they're still learning, and the blind spots and the holes and the misses are loud, and great teachers. This is a very personal and soul act, and when it goes poorly, that hurts personally and hurts your soul, and so that's an additional burden that people are trying to navigate, all while the kids are right there saying, aware that they can feel it. They might not even be able to name it all, but they can definitely feel it. And they're right, it's not fair. It is not kind that this level of the lesson that we've all learned, that life isn't always fair, that they have to learn this in this moment and in this way and in this duration. Is really a weight that we're really trying to process and help them through. When there's death and murder in our environment and in the news, it hits the kids here at North at kind of two levels. On one level, if it's personal, and then it's everything. It is all consuming. It is all focus. It is everything. And if it's not personal, and it's anonymous, then there's a weird soft numb that is exhibited, that I don't know if I'm saying it or naming it right, or even properly or respectfully, but it's like a haze. It's just a little, the sharp, the crisp, the bright, the energy takes a dial turn down in these moments, and it's a little, but it's everywhere, and because it's a little everywhere, everyone can feel it too, and so everybody comes a little more gently at each other. Everybody in our school is too close to a situation like that having been personal, and so even when it's not personal, in a specific situation, it brings back the personal, and just in case it's probably personal for somebody they do know. And so everybody kind of holds themselves to a slightly softer, gentler, kinder approach, almost always. Again, if it's personal, then that can go the other direction and be more with more passion and rage as people grieve. So again, helping people through that, helping children through that is real. It's real hard. It's real personal. It's real custom, and it's not cookie cutter. There's good practices, but there's not right recipes on this. Each situation is different, and it's our job to do our very best to serve each of the kids as they're going through this, either first person grief or trauma and all the rest that comes with it, or the third person and the echoes of the grief that people have experienced in the past. And it's hard.
Kelly Wright and Principal Abdullah, let me close with this question for you both to respond to. Is there trauma care? Is there sufficient trauma care for your staff? Your students and their families, what, and as you were speaking, Steve, about things being dull or sharp, the picture, the image of trauma, of generalized trauma, entered my mind, and that may be one of the ways for me to understand what you are describing. But Principal Wright, Principal Abdullah, are we giving you, school leaders, and the children that you're in charge of and their families, sufficient mental health, trauma response resources to enable the environment to be as close to healing and responsive to this as possible? Then the final question is, we're not hearing much now about scores. The challenges of gaps in performance seem to have been eclipsed by the impact of both the George Floyd and the COVID-19. So are we losing anything or taking our eyes off mission one? And that is ensuring that our children get the very, very best and demonstrably best education experience they can possibly have. Principal Wright, what do you think?
Well, I think our eyes are always on scores. We've been disaggregating our data because we've just had our data meetings for our winter scores. And we always disaggregate by race. And we certainly still have a gap, which always we're going to have a gap unless we change what we're doing in education. We're never going to get different results unless we do different things. Otherwise education is going to do what it's traditionally been designed to do, because education was designed to do what it's, what it does, because we know who education was designed for, right? It was never designed for people who look like us. So we have to do something different if we want to get different results. Yes, we still have a gap. We are working tirelessly to close that gap. It exists, and we have to work to close it. So yes, we are still disaggregating our data. We are still talking about our data and about the gaps that we have in our data, and how we have to work to close that data. As far as trauma, we and mental health, we do have mental, I have a therapist, site-based therapist, based at our site. I believe most schools do now have that, especially North Side and in schools that are high, considered high-risk schools. But I think most schools have a therapist based at their site, and then we do have trauma teams that we can access if we need more assistance. When certain events happen, we can access more support if we need it. So I think we do have access to that, and to get the support we need for students who have needs or high needs. Do we need more? Yes, I think we do. We just have a lot of students with a lot of needs right now, and I think COVID-19 has exacerbated that. I think with a lot of students and being at home for that amount of time and being confined in those spaces, and students, all the back and forth with students. I think mental health, we just have such high needs. Even my person, her caseload is full, so we could always use more, of course, and we have to figure out how to provide more for some of our students. So I think that's where the rub comes in, is that we have to figure out how to provide more for some students, because we still have a lot of students that are in crisis, and we can't still meet the needs of all of our students, even with a site-based mental health therapist at our building. So yeah, I think we could use more support in that area.
Final word to you, Principal Isa Abdullah.
Yes, two great questions. First of all, the trauma and mental health question. We do, Kelly, you're right. We do have a therapist. We have a few therapists at Henry High School. So we have some of the traditional supports. We got 2 psychologists, we got 4 social workers, we got restorative advocates. We got a team of folks that really works to come together and support students depending on the level of needs. What we're trying to do, and it's really stemming from kind of our own personal experiences, but also with the unrest. Bettina Love kind of spoke highly about, we can't come back to the same old. This is our opportunity to seize a moment and do things differently. So at Henry, we're trying to reimagine what that looked like, especially in the midst of the violence and the trauma that our young people are going through. How do we create a school system, or school specifically, where the mental health supports and the trauma supports and the healing is embedded in curriculum embedded into the day-to-day structure. We don't have a lot of flexibility. We don't have a lot of structures and systems in place so that students are, when they walk into this place, it's a healing place more so than just an institution. So we're really trying to imagine that. And we're running up against some snags, but I think I'm going to be very hopeful that soon we'll be able to come up with something. Because for us, I mean, North, in Henry, we get hit very hard with losing students. And so we do that one and done or that 2 days and done type approach, which is not healthy for anyone. And so that's why it has to be kind of roped into the fabric of our school and our day-to-day instruction. As far as the standardized test goals and scores and what we say loss and learning, Henry is one of them schools that do not weigh heavily on standardized testing. Students and families are opting out of the testing. So when we're looking at, the test dates and the testing opportunities, you only have a handful of students who are going through that process. So they will take the ACT because that was one of those tests that, okay, it supports college admissions, but even the colleges are starting to do away with ACT. So we're trying to just structure classrooms where there's a lot more project-based, a lot more opportunities to show what you know. We're looking at community-based opportunities, internship opportunities. We're looking for just all those intangibles that can help students become not just college and career ready, but also life ready.
And thank you also very, very much, Principal Yusuf Abdullah, Principal Kelly Wright, and Assistant Principal Steve White. Thank you. This has been a great listening session for me, and I think for everybody on the panel as well. Any other last questions before we move further on? Well, listen again, thank you. Keep up the good work. I think you should count on the community to support you. I think to the degree that we can keep telling your story, it's one that encourages and invites our neighbors and neighborhoods to support your important critical work. Diana, let me turn it over to you for announcements and comments.
Yes, thank you, Al. I just want to say again, thank you to all of the principals for sharing with us this morning. And next month, we're going to continue with the schools, with some workers in the schools and another charter school that has popped up. Moving on with announcements, is Miss April Graves still on? Is she here? Are you here, April? Miss April, can you please make an announcement about this great initiative that you have going on right now?
Sure. Thank you for calling on me. Good to see you guys this morning, and also really great to hear about all the amazing work that you're doing, which I know you are. So happy to be in the space. So we just started an initiative. It's a 5-year initiative. There's 2 strategies. One is actually working with the Minneapolis Public Schools. It's called Building Peaceful Schools, but we're just doing that strategy in Edison and Roosevelt, although I'd be happy to share with the other principals if they're interested about it. The other strategy, which Diana was referring to, is called the Minneapolis Violence Prevention Community Champions. And so we're going to be doing a quarterly institute, which will train community members on the public health approach to violence prevention, adverse childhood experiences, and conflict resolution de-escalation skills. And so it's about a half-day training. Folks that go through it will get a certificate letting them know that they are a community champion. And the idea really is to build a network of people that have the skills and the connections to really be a champion in their community and preventing violence. When we're not doing the quarterly institute, we're also going to have complimentary spotlight trainings on other months that the institute isn't taking place. And those trainings will be conducted by community organizations on specific topics. So for instance, the one we had last month was on domestic violence and healing from childhood trauma. And the one that will be in March will be on psychological first aid. So the first institute of the year will be on February 12th. It's both virtual and in person from 10 a.m. until 2 p.m. So that's a little bit about what's going on, but you guys will hear about it as more trainings come out. I'll send it out into the universe and hope folks will share it with their networks as well. Thank you for giving me the time.
Yes, ma'am. Ms. Tasker, I know you are here and had an announcement as well.
Good morning. Yes, I'm Tasker Welchers with Hennepin County. So my announcement is the Department of Corrections, Community Corrections Coalition will be opening recruitment for our committee. And the purpose of this committee is to advise and influence policies and practices, particularly as relate to addressing service gaps and racial disparities, and just building support between with relationships between community and our department. And another effort that our committee is doing in 2022 and probably into 2023, we will be taking on a project. You'll hear more about that in the coming probably months, a mentoring project. So I'll probably be reaching out to the community and community organizations for input about that.
Thank you, ma'am. And I make an announcement that the Northside Urban Coalition is meeting February the 18th via Zoom at 11 o'clock. This month, we're talking about substance abuse around pregnancy and mental health. And we have a fabulous speaker, Dr. D from the University of Minnesota Emergency Medical will be with us. And as always, my good friend, Mr. Al McFarlane will moderate this. Also, I want to make sure that everyone at 1 o'clock every day tune into Mr. Al because he has some great topics that's going on. And before I turn it back over to Al, does anyone else have any announcements they would want to make? And Ms. Ann, I'm happy that you have the last word.
I have no announcements about any specific events or anything, but I do ask people to really pay attention to the things that have been said here today about things that are upcoming. But also, I thought the principals were great. I thought they spoke very honestly and directly and clearly in a way I have not always heard. They just told the truth, and it was really a beautiful thing. So what I didn't ask them was, how can we help support you? But I think we all know ways to support them. And I think having them here and asking them to, just sending them a note saying, thinking about you, hope you're okay. Any of those things, they need our support. This is a very rough time for them, but I really appreciate what they said. So thanks, Diana, for letting me say that. Al, back to you.
I think we've had a great meeting. I want to thank everybody for being here. Those who are listening on social media, if you want to, you can share this to your networks. I think this is an important conversation. With that, we'll call the meeting adjourned, and we'll see you all next time. Take care.
Bye. Bye.
Bye-bye.